G'day everybody, I'm X-Ray Racer 1 and welcome to part 11 of the Team Associated B5M build series. Part 11, what we will be building, well assembling, is the servo, or installing the servo, installing the motor, and just a few little things here and there before we start getting towards the end of the build. Part 12 will consist of installing the ESC and the ESC and the receiver, but that I'll also go through showing you how to solder, or solder if you're American, how to solder the wires to the ESC. That's if you have ESC that requires soldering. So also I said in the previous video that I'll just install the shocks and just show you what I did. What I've done is I've installed 3 of the 4 shocks. So there's pretty easy. So what I've done is I've kept one of the front ones, and it's pretty straightforward. I like, when I install it, I like to have the bleeder screw on the outside. It's just my thing. You need one of these little collets that go into the top of the shock cap. Just put it onto the shock tower, and then we get a nylock nut. Just thread that on. It's a nylock nut, so you don't need thread lock. Now where did I put that? Ah, there it is. Alright, so now we just use a little T-wrench here and just tighten it. You don't need to go crazy with tightening it, but it's normal. Once you feel it nip, that's it. That's all it needs, because as I said, it's a nylock, so the little nylon inside the nut will hold it on. Alright, so now long screw, and it says to put it on the outermost hole. Pretty easy. Once you feed it through like that. Now I've put new batteries in this, so let's see how we go. Alright, so now we just screw it in. And there we go. So that's all 4 shocks on to the suspension, like that. When you're doing it, squeeze the both, like say for instance, both rear shocks, let them down, see if they come down at the same speed, because if they don't, you could have alternating rebound. So in other words, one shock or rebound might have a bit more rebound than the other, so it might come down a bit quicker. So when you do it, let them go, so that they're both coming down at the same time. Hang on, I'll squeeze it so you can see it on camera. See, they're coming down at the same speed, so the rebound is the same. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll put the motor in. Now for this I have to use, well I don't have to, but to get the gear ratio correct I'm using a 32 tooth pinion. Now we have 2 screws here, got washers on them. Alright, so now we just simply just put the motor in and align them with the holes on the motor. Alright, so we just don't do it tight yet, because you got to slide the motor across to get the mesh correct. Okay, now we put our pinion gear on. Have it so when you put it, have it so that it's, I guess you call it flush with the spur gear. So if it's a narrow pinion gear, try to have the gear as close to the middle of the spur gear as possible. Alright, now when you go to set the mesh, of course I don't have any paper on me, don't I? Unbelievable. Alright, just give me a quick second. What I will do is I'll just rip this bit of paper here. Okay, get some paper, fold it in half, and that, believe it or not, is a pretty important tool for setting gear mesh. Because then you put the paper in between the spur and the pinion, and you push the pinion up tight, and then you will tighten the motor mount screws. Alright. Now when you test it, you should hear a little clicking noise. Hear that? That's just a little bit of play. So basically what it is, it's the tooth going click, 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 click like that. You want a little bit of movement. You don't want it jammed right up tight. So that's the gear mesh. We'll put a gear cover on. Also there's a little rubber grommet here. Goes over this. What this does is so you can take it off and set your slip clutch. Alright, 2mm screws. Pretty easy. Don't need thread lock for these because the plastic will help it stay on. Do it fairly tight. Alright, don't need that rag actually. Alright, so that's the motor in. Alright, so now what we'll do is we'll get on with our servo. Now, what we need is 2 screws and 2 washers. The washers are already on. So if I just show it to you there, it's the washer. Now we need a spacer. Now depending on what kind of servo you got, I mean if you got a low profile servo, you don't need the spacers to be honest, because the spacers help keep the bottom of the servo off the part of the chassis here. Now what we'll do is we also need a mount, and how I do it is we put the little spacer on, and then what we'll do is we'll put it in there. Okay, now with high-tech servos, they don't have a full circle. As you can see, there's like a little hole there. So what I'll do is I'll just click it, and then we'll just tighten it up a little bit of the way because we might have to just adjust. Got the spacer on the wrong side. Alright, just give me a quick second, people. Of course, now that I'm on camera, it's going to fight me. Alright, so... Oh, come on! Alright. It's just one of those things, people. I don't think I've ever done a build series where everything's gone smoothly. There's always just something that likes to create a little havoc. Alright, so now we just tighten it up. This is such a better idea than what Team Associated had with their B4 system, because the screws actually come through the bottom of the chassis rather than here It actually just screws the top here, so if you have to do a quick change, it's just undo that as opposed to flipping it over. Because if I'm putting the chassis guard there, I have to, you know, cut a hole in there to reach the screw. So this is it's a good idea. So now we just get our ball stud, the spacer, put it in. Alright, so now quite simply just screw that in. Alright, so now what we're doing after this is just putting the connecting rod on. Now this is actually good now. Team Associated have done away with the old thing where it was actually two halves. So now this is just one molded piece, which is good. So now pay note of its orientation, and we'll just get our multi-grips and press it on like that. Okay, now we'll just bring this over here, get our two screws. Okay, probably, yeah, I'm gonna go back, put this on the actual steering rack first because there's not a lot of space. Alright, so okay, so it's gonna be a pain in the butt. Let's see if I can just, like I said, folks, I don't think I've done a build series where it's gone perfect. There we go. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll get our servo. Now we just feed it through the bottom here. Okay, so now we just get it. This is probably going to be another bit to do, so just bear with me. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now what we have to do is just line up the holes, 2mm driver. Of course I misplaced the screws, haven't I? Oh, there they are. Alright, now we put them in here. I might use my electric screwdriver because this is going to give me sore wrists. Alright folks, so that's part 11. As you can see, we have our steering servo installed, got the motor installed, and so now part 12 will be the installation of the ESC, the receiver, and soldering the wires. Stay tuned folks.